The awakening. There is a moment most people avoid. A quiet moment. No phone, no noise, no distractions. Just you, alone with your thoughts. In that moment, a question appears, soft but dangerous. Are you actually living or just moving through days on autopilot? Most people don't want to answer that honestly, because if they do, they'll realize something uncomfortable. Their life looks busy, but it feels empty. Their days are full, but their soul is quiet. They wake up, survive the day, go to sleep, and repeat. And somewhere between the alarm clock and the screen in their hands, they slowly forget who they wanted to become. Everyone wants a beautiful future. Freedom, confidence, money without constant stress, a strong body, a sharp mind, a peaceful heart, a life that feels meaningful instead of heavy. People dream about traveling, building something of their own, being respected, feeling proud when they look in the mirror. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people never face. Wanting a better life is easy. Living in a way that creates it is rare. Dreams don't disappear because they're impossible. They disappear because people trade them for comfort. They trade them for scrolling, for just one more episode, for sleeping late and starting tomorrow, for convincing themselves they still have time. And that's the danger. Not failure, not hardship, but slowly accepting a life that feels smaller than your potential. You tell yourself you're fine, you're not struggling enough to change, not hurting enough to move, not desperate enough to act, so you stay where you are. But deep down, something inside you knows, this isn't it. This isn't the life you imagined when you were younger. This isn't the version of you that had fire in their eyes. This isn't the story you want to tell at the end. And the scariest part? Time keeps moving whether you wake up or not. No one tells you when the last ordinary day becomes the last chance. That's why this moment matters. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when you feel ready. This moment. Because awareness is the first crack in the wall. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You're not here to be entertained. You're here to wake up. Time is not on your side. Most people think they're wasting time. They're wrong. They're trading pieces of their life for distraction. Every hour you lose isn't coming back. Every day you postpone isn't waiting for you. Time doesn't pause because you're tired, confused, or afraid. It keeps moving, silently, relentlessly. You don't feel it today, but one day you will. One day you'll look back and wonder how years disappeared so quickly. How plans stayed plans. How soon quietly turned into never. Time isn't money. You can earn money again. You can lose it and rebuild it. You can recover financially. But time? Once it's gone forever. Every moment you delay something meaningful, you're not just delaying progress, you're reducing your future options. People say, I'll start later. Later when things calm down. Later when they feel more confident. Later when life is easier. But life doesn't get easier before action. It gets easier after commitment. Someday is not a plan. It's a hiding place. It's a word people use to avoid responsibility without feeling guilty. Someday I'll learn. Someday I'll change. Someday I'll become disciplined. Someday I'll chase my dream. But someday never shows up. Because someday has no calendar, no deadline, no urgency. It asks nothing from you. And dreams that are never demanded are never delivered. Look at your recent days.
Not your intentions, not your excuses, your actions. What did you actually do with your time? Because time reveals priorities without asking questions. If most of your hours are spent escaping reality, then don't be surprised when your reality doesn't change. Your energy is not unlimited. Your focus is not endless. Your youth is not permanent. Your parents are getting older. Your body is aging quietly. Opportunities are passing you without making noise. And the worst part? You don't get notified. There's no warning sound, no message saying you have 5 years left to try. Life doesn't announce its deadlines. That's why discipline matters. Not because you're weak, but because time is ruthless. People who win don't have more time. They just respect it more. They treat hours like something valuable. They protect their mornings. They reduce distractions. They plan their days instead of letting their days control them. They understand one powerful truth. If you don't decide how your time is used, someone else will decide for you. Social media, entertainment, other people's priorities, other people's dreams. Time becomes your greatest ally when you honor it, and your most dangerous enemy when you ignore it. So the question is no longer, do I have time? The real question is, what am I giving my life to, 1 hour at a time? Because whether you choose consciously or not, you are choosing. And the clock is already moving.
Ownership changes everything. At some point, every person reaches a crossroads. Not a dramatic one, no music, no spotlight, just a quiet realization. No one is coming to fix this for me. This is where most people feel uncomfortable, because ownership removes excuses. It means your life is not the fault of your past, your parents, your teachers, your friends, or the system. It means your current reality, whether you like it or not, is the result of choices made over time. That truth can feel heavy, so people resist it. They point to what they didn't receive, the support they never had, the opportunities that passed them by, the advantages others were born with. And yes, life is unfair. Some people start ahead. Some people struggle longer. Some people carry pain they never asked for. But here's the part no one wants to hear. Blaming your circumstances may feel justified, but it keeps you powerless. The moment you decide your life is controlled by something outside of you, you give up the ability to change it. Responsibility is uncomfortable because it removes the victim role, but it's also the only door to freedom. You don't need to deny your past. You don't need to pretend things were easy. You just need to stop letting history decide your future. Power doesn't come from having a perfect story. It comes from deciding that from this moment on, you are the author. Strong people don't wait for better conditions. They create better responses. They don't say, if things were different, I would succeed. They say, given what I have, what can I build? That shift changes everything. The day you stop asking who's to blame and start asking what's my next move, you stop surviving and start building. Your problems don't disappear, but you grow bigger than them. And for the first time, your life becomes something you're actively shaping, not something you're just reacting to. The comfort zone is a cage. Most people aren't held back by failure. They're held back by comfort. Comfort is quiet. It doesn't attack you. It doesn't scare you. It slowly puts your ambition to sleep. You wake up around the same time. You check your phone without thinking. You follow familiar routines. You avoid anything that might feel awkward, difficult, or uncertain. And from the outside, it looks fine. You're not struggling. You're not in danger. You're not failing dramatically. But inside, something is fading.
your curiosity, your hunger, your edge. Comfort convinces you that growth can wait. It tells you that discomfort is optional, that embarrassment should be avoided, that risk is dangerous, but growth has never lived in safe places. Every meaningful skill was built through awkward beginnings. Every strong identity was forged through pressure. Every breakthrough required stepping into the unknown. Comfort doesn't ruin your life in one moment. It does it slowly, by making sure nothing ever changes. You tell yourself you'll act when you feel ready, when you're more confident, when conditions improve. But readiness doesn't come before action. It comes from it. The moment you stay silent instead of speaking, avoid trying instead of risking, choose ease instead of effort, you reinforce the version of yourself that stays small. And over time, that version becomes familiar. The comfort zone doesn't feel like a prison. That's why it's dangerous. It feels like safety, but it costs you momentum. Think of anything that grows. Nothing expands without resistance. Nothing becomes strong without strain. Nothing meaningful emerges without tension. You are no different. Discomfort is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're entering territory where change is possible. The people who transform their lives aren't fearless. They're just willing to feel uncomfortable longer than others. They speak before they feel confident. They start before they feel ready. They fail before they succeed. And with every uncomfortable action, they widen the boundaries of who they are allowed to become. Comfort keeps you average. Discomfort builds you into someone new. The question is simple. Will you protect comfort, or will you protect your future? Because you can't have both.
The illusion of preparation. There is a trap that looks intelligent. It sounds responsible. It feels productive, but it quietly keeps people stuck. It's called preparing without moving. Most people don't fail because they act too soon. They fail because they never act at all. They research, they plan, they watch, they collect advice, they wait for clarity. Weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and nothing changes. Thinking becomes a hiding place. You tell yourself you're being careful, that you're learning, that you're not rushing. But deep down, you know the truth. You're avoiding the moment where effort is required. Overthinking drains energy before it ever becomes action. It creates imaginary problems that feel real enough to stop you. You rehearse failure before it happens. You imagine judgment before anyone speaks. You picture obstacles before taking the first step. And by the time you're done thinking, you feel exhausted without having done anything. Progress doesn't come from perfect understanding. It comes from imperfect movement. No one ever figures everything out in advance. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something that grows after you act. Every skill is built in motion. Every breakthrough begins with discomfort. The people who change their lives aren't smarter. They're not more talented. They're just willing to start before certainty arrives. Action cuts through fear like light through darkness. The moment you move, even badly, your mind stops arguing and starts adapting. You don't need to know every step. You only need to take the next one. Because motion creates clarity. Stillness creates doubt. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to begin. Becoming the one who does. At some point, change stops being about motivation. It becomes about identity. Not what you want, not what you plan, but who you decide to be. Most people try to change their lives by forcing behavior. They rely on bursts of energy, temporary inspiration, short-lived excitement.
And when that fades, they return to old patterns. But lasting change happens differently. It begins when you stop asking, "What should I do today?" and start asking, "What would the disciplined version of me do right now?" This is where the shift happens. You stop negotiating with your habits. You stop waiting to feel like it. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't understand your vision. You become someone who shows up. Not loudly, not for attention, but consistently. You do the work when no one is watching. You choose effort over ease. You keep promises to yourself even when breaking them would be easier. This version of you doesn't need applause. They measure success in private victories. Waking up when it's uncomfortable. Practicing when it's boring. Continuing when results are invisible. This is the person others notice years later and say, "They changed." What they don't see are the thousands of quiet decisions that built that change. Becoming disciplined isn't about becoming harsh. It's about becoming dependable to yourself. You stop seeing discipline as punishment and start seeing it as self-respect. Because every time you do what you said you would do, you strengthen your identity. And identity drives behavior far more than motivation ever could. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to the level of who you believe you are. So decide. Decide to be the person who finishes, the person who acts, the person who doesn't need to announce plans, only results. This isn't about being better than others. It's about being unrecognizable compared to who you used to be. And once that identity locks in, quitting no longer feels like an option.
The real battle. People often look for enemies outside themselves. They blame circumstances. They blame people. They blame bad luck, timing, or the world. But the most dangerous enemy doesn't live out there. It lives inside you. It's the voice that whispers comfort when effort is required. The voice that says, "You've done enough." The voice that convinces you to quit just before momentum appears. This is the battle no one talks about. Not you versus society, not you versus competition, you versus you. Every morning, two versions of you wake up. One wants ease, the other wants growth. One wants to scroll, delay, and relax. The other wants to build, focus, and move forward. They don't fight loudly, they fight quietly, through small decisions. Do you get up or stay in bed? Do you act or postpone? Do you choose discipline or distraction? These choices don't feel dramatic, but repeated over time, they shape your identity. The weaker version doesn't look evil, it looks reasonable. It tells you to rest even when you're not tired. It tells you to stop even when you've barely begun. It tells you average is acceptable. And if you listen long enough, it becomes familiar. But the stronger version, the one capable of changing your life, only grows when challenged. It demands effort. It demands consistency. It demands that you act even when motivation is absent. This battle never ends. You don't win it once and move on. You win it daily. And the side that wins is always the one you feed. Every disciplined action strengthens the right voice. Every excuse feeds the wrong one. Your future is built through these quiet victories, not in grand moments, but in the decisions no one sees.
Mastering willpower. If your actions depend on how you feel, your life will always feel unstable. Feelings change, energy rises and falls, motivation disappears without warning. But discipline remains when feelings fail. Willpower is not something you're born with, it's something you train. Like a muscle, it grows through resistance. Every time you do something you don't feel like doing, you strengthen it. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you increase self-trust, and self-trust changes everything. People who succeed aren't always excited. They're often tired, uncertain, and uncomfortable. What separates them is not passion, but their ability to act without needing permission from their emotions. They don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" They ask, "Is this aligned with who I'm becoming?" Willpower is the ability to move forward even when your mind argues against you. It's choosing long-term respect over short-term comfort. At first, it's difficult. Your habits will resist change. Your mind will search for shortcuts. Your body will ask for relief. But consistency rewires behavior. Small acts of discipline accumulate into strength. Turning off distractions, starting before you're ready, finishing what you begin. Over time, effort becomes normal. Discipline becomes identity. And once willpower is trained, you stop feeling controlled by impulses. You stop reacting. You start deciding. This is how people regain control of their lives, not by waiting for motivation, but by building the ability to act without it. And once you master that, very little can stop you. The comparison trap. Comparison doesn't arrive loudly. It slips in quietly through screens and small moments of doubt. You see someone ahead of you, more confident, more successful, more visible, and suddenly your progress feels smaller. Not because it is, but because you're measuring it against someone else's highlight. This is how momentum dies. You begin questioning your pace, your path, your worth. You forget that every journey moves at a different speed. You forget the nights they struggled, the failures they never posted, the years it took them to get where they are. Comparison distorts reality. It convinces you that you're behind when you're actually in the middle of becoming. The more you watch other people's lives, the less energy you have to build your own. Instead of focusing on growth, you focus on gaps. Instead of improving daily, you judge yourself constantly. And that judgment becomes heavy. Comparison doesn't inspire consistency. It breeds impatience. You rush, you doubt, you abandon good paths because someone else appears further ahead. But success is not a race with others. It's a commitment to your own evolution. The moment you stop measuring your life against someone else's timeline, you reclaim your focus. Your only meaningful comparison is yesterday's version of you. Are you more disciplined, more aware, more courageous than before? That's the only metric that matters. Anything else is noise.
Choosing yourself. At some point, waiting becomes exhausting. Waiting for approval, waiting for validation, waiting for someone to say, "Now you're ready." That moment rarely comes. The world doesn't hand out invitations to become powerful. It responds after you move. Most people never start because they're waiting to be chosen. Chosen by opportunity, chosen by support, chosen by confidence. But the people who change their lives do something different. They choose themselves. They stop asking for permission to try. They stop explaining their dreams to people who can't see them. They stop shrinking their ambition to make others comfortable. Choosing yourself doesn't mean arrogance. It means commitment. It means deciding that your life is worth investing in, even before results appear. It means taking action while doubt is still present, showing up before belief feels strong, backing yourself when no one else does. This is where independence begins. Not financial independence, mental independence. The ability to move without applause, to build without recognition,
to continue when support is absent. When you choose yourself, you stop waiting for confidence to arrive and start building it through action. You stop needing everyone to understand your path, because clarity comes from walking it, not explaining it. And once you choose yourself consistently, others begin to respond, not because you asked, but because results speak louder than intention ever could. This is the moment where everything changes, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop needing it to be. Risk is the entry fee. A life worth remembering never begins with safety. It begins the moment you decide to step forward without knowing exactly how things will turn out. Risk is uncomfortable for a reason. It forces you to choose between protection and possibility. Most people choose protection. They stay where they are because it's familiar, because it pays the bills, because it doesn't threaten their identity. But comfort has a hidden cost. It quietly steals the chance to become someone greater. Every meaningful transformation requires a leap, not reckless, but intentional. You risk embarrassment when you speak before you feel confident. You risk rejection when you put your work into the world. You risk failure when you attempt something that actually matters. And yes, you might fall. But falling is not the opposite of progress. Staying still is. Risk is not about gambling your future. It's about refusing to live a life that feels unfinished. People often say they want a story worth telling, but stories are written through uncertainty. No one remembers the path that stayed safe. They remember the moment someone dared. The truth is simple. If you never risk being uncomfortable, you guarantee regret. And regret lasts far longer than fear.
Rebuilding yourself. There comes a moment when you look at your life honestly and realize it no longer fits who you are becoming. Your routines feel heavy. Your habits feel outdated. Your environment no longer supports your growth. And that's not failure. That's evolution. You are not meant to stay the same forever. You are allowed to change direction. You are allowed to outgrow old versions of yourself. Reinvention doesn't happen overnight. It begins with decisions that feel small but change everything. Changing how you start your mornings. Changing what you consume mentally. Changing who you allow access to your energy. Sometimes reinvention means walking away from expectations, from comfort, from identities that no longer serve you. It means letting go of who you were to make space for who you're becoming. This process can feel lonely. Not everyone will understand the shift. Some will resist it. Some will question it. But growth has never asked for permission. Rebuilding yourself is an act of courage. It's choosing to live intentionally instead of repeating patterns out of habit. You stop waiting for life to change and start shaping it through action. And slowly, without noise or drama, a new version of you begins to take form. Stronger, clearer, more aligned. Not because life became easier, but because you became more capable. The weight of time. There is a sound that never stops. You don't hear it with your ears. You feel it in moments of reflection. Time moving forward. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't slow down when you're unsure. It doesn't wait for confidence to arrive. It simply continues. Most people don't realize how much time they've lost until they look back and wonder where the years went. Dreams fade quietly, not because people give up on them, but because they stop feeding them. They tell themselves they're still young, still figuring things out, still waiting for the right moment. But readiness is a decision, not a feeling.
You don't get unlimited attempts at becoming who you want to be. Every season you waste becomes harder to recover. And the cruel part, there is no alert when opportunities expire, no warning when the window closes, no reminder that this phase of your life is ending. That's why urgency matters. Not panic, not desperation. Urgency grounded in respect for time. Because one day you will look in the mirror and see someone older than you expected. And in that moment, only two emotions will exist: pride for having tried, or regret for having waited. Time doesn't reward intention, it rewards movement. And the longer you delay, the more courage it takes to begin. So the question becomes unavoidable. How much longer are you willing to postpone your own life?
The final decision. This is the moment everything narrows. No more theory, no more preparation, no more waiting, just a choice. You can continue living on default, reacting, distracting, postponing, or you can decide that today marks a shift. Not a dramatic transformation, not a perfect restart, but a clear line between who you were and who you refuse to remain. No one is coming to hand you clarity. No one is going to remove the fear for you. Courage is not the absence of doubt, it's the willingness to act with it present. You don't need to change your entire life today. You only need to take responsibility for the next step. One honest action, one uncomfortable move, one decision that aligns with the future you want. This is how lives change. Quietly, consistently, intentionally. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are standing at a moment that matters, and the direction you choose from here will echo far longer than you think. So stand up, not physically, internally. Choose effort over excuse. Choose discipline over delay. Choose yourself over comfort, because your future is not built in someday. It is built now, and this moment, right here, is asking you to decide.